Hello, this is Mark Holmes, the editorial director of Via Satellite. And I'm delighted to be back for one of our famous Thursday morning conversations. And this is going to be quite a big conversation. We've got lots of people taking part today, but we're going to get some very interesting viewpoints, particularly as it pertains to mobility and maritime. So I'd like to welcome Roland Habati, who's Fleet IT and Superintendent CMI Ship Management. We also have Brent Horwitz, Senior Vice President and General Management of Speedcast. And we have Yo Delore, VP Market Development and Strategy, ST Engineering, iDirect. So firstly, welcome everybody and looking forward to having a conversation with you all today.
Great, thank you, Mark. Mark, thanks for having us.
Okay, well, let's get into it. I'm going to start with Roland, actually, because I think we're always interested in sort of talking to the sort of the customer and stuff. So tell me, sort of, Roland, from your perspective, some of the biggest challenges, opportunities the CMI sees, the importance of advanced mobility when it comes to your network and what you're looking to do.
As the Cruise Management International is the leading company in providing expedition to the most remote places on Earth in the north and south, everything is challenging, right? Connectivity is challenging, stability, and of course, if we talk about the modems that we use from Speedcast and the antennas, they are the ones that do the job even up to 82 latitude north. South it is about 67, 68.
Okay, and you know, tell us a bit about. I mean, obviously, like for any company for in maritime and even aviation mobility, it's been obviously an interesting sort of 2 or 3 years. Where do you see sort of the company? Where is it at now, and what is next in terms of, I guess, it's sort of connectivity strategy 2.0 or even 3.0?
Yeah, we for now we are kind of using almost all the bandwidth, the bands that is available, right? We start with C band, that is the highest in use, KU, L band, over the Iridium. Those are what we're looking into. It is into having connectivity at the extremities, getting LEO and MEO, being connected with them to see how will be the impact and the speed back there, and the stability, because that's, I think it is one of the most important things, stability. As people know, the ice melts, and expedition goes deeper and deeper into fjords and to places where even if the satellite will follow us above, will be very challenging.
Okay, let's bring Brent and then Yo into the discussion as well. Brent, I mean, CMI is a customer of Speedcast. I mean, how are their sort of requirements sort of changing, and how do you see sort of I guess also broaden it out to the changing requirements of some of your maritime customers now? And
yeah, so it's an interesting point, Mark. I mean, I think that CMI brings some certain unique challenges. I mean, CMI, in the expedition and really in the luxury expedition, they have certain requirements in that they have fewer antennas than we see on some of the larger vessels. They're also in some of the most challenging, environments imaginable. I mean, obviously, Roland spoke about going to Antarctica, to Antarctica, to the Arctic, to Galapagos, all these challenging places. So I think that, part of what we're seeing is the need to have 100% uptime. Obviously, there's a focus on delivering, really delightful connectivity experiences. I mean, somebody goes on board a vessel, they want to make sure that the internet experience is commensurate with all the other areas of the cruise experience. So I think that's one area that we've really been focusing on, is making sure that we have, plan A, we have plan B, in the case of CMI. What we're seeing in the larger cruise space, I think generally is many more antennas. I mean, massive investments in infrastructure. I mean, when we look at, larger, customers like Carnival Corporation and Royal Caribbean, we're seeing multiple, 3 and 4 tri-band antennas, massive infrastructure investments where you have, sometimes 4,000 Wi-Fi access points on board the vessel. I mean, really focusing on having, you know, connectivity as one of the core elements of the cruise experience. And of course, we've seen, you know, massive investments also in bandwidth. I mean, I think we've seen, compared to the pre-pandemic periods, I mean, we've seen sometimes, you know, twice the investment of bandwidth is what we're seeing now, and that growth is going to continue. And I could speak more about that, you know, shortly.
Yeah, before I bring Yo into the conversation, have you been sort of surprised by, I guess, sort of the increase in spending and seeing these sort of bandwidth, particularly coming in a period where it's been pretty tough for some of these companies?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, one of the things that's really interesting, and I you know, I mean, I think that, you know, we're now in a world where using, you know, your phone, making a call using a video as opposed to a normal voice call has become normal. And obviously the amount of bandwidth that requires is orders of magnitude before, you know, of what it was before. I mean, to give you an idea of some of the growth, in the last 6 weeks, so right now we're in this transitional period where ships that traditionally spend their time in the Caribbean are going to Alaska and are going to Europe. In the last, you know, 6 weeks or so, we've added 65 networks with a total of 13 gigabits of capacity, you know, to our global network. So our unified global platform, which is based on the Dialog platform from ST Engineering iDirect, is now, you know, over 30 gigabits of total bandwidth. The cruise industry, just to give you a sense of the return to service, 51 cruise ships are coming back to service in the month of May alone, including all of Carnival and all of Royal Caribbean. And I mean, as you can imagine, I mean, the growth that we're seeing is absolutely staggering. It may be the best kept secret in the satellite industry, but this is probably one of the most exciting months, certainly in my 23 months of providing services in the satellite industry ever.
Wow, it might be a best kept secret, but after this conversation, I think most will know about it. Yo, that must be music to your ears when you hear that.
Absolutely, and it's good to hear both Roland and Brent talk about what's important from their perspective, right? Like Roland was saying, a key element that we see as well in advanced mobility is that the end users, they demand fiber-like, land-like services, right?
Correct.
It doesn't matter whether they own a ship or anywhere else. So it's all about delivering user experience, right? And doing that any place on Earth, right? And that's what we see as well as one of the key elements is assuring that our customers like Speedcast can service their customers, the end users like Roland, with advanced capabilities so that they bring a uniform user experience all across the globe, right? And mobility network. And this involves a lot of things because often people think about mobility networks and beam switching, but it's requiring way more advanced technology and logic, and Speedcast also contributing a lot to that to assure the best user experience possible. And that's what is really important from a fleet operator perspective. What we've seen as well, and Brent just highlighted, and Roland talked about that as well, throughputs have been increasing very significantly. So that has been a key element that we brought into our mobility solution, right? Delivering hundreds of megabits per modem up to 400 and even higher megabits into a single modem, but also on the upload speed, that has also been changing over time, where we see now the upload speeds more approaching symmetric ratios and always getting closer to symmetry. So the upload throughput becomes way more important in mobility environment as well. And then last but not least, it's all about delivering this in an efficient way, right? To squeeze the most out of the capacity. As Brent was saying, there's a huge surge of demand. So using the capacity, the satellite capacity in the best possible way, squeezing out as many megabits as you can, but at the same time delivering also reliability, right? If you're operating far north, far south, you're working in challenging environments, and that's exactly what we bring into our technology as well, combining all these elements together. And our MXDMA return technology is a very good example to deliver this.
I'll stick with you, Yo, and talk about advanced mobility. I mean, I know we've talked about this a few times with ST Engineering iDirect recently, but let's be honest, we always like to know what's coming next. And we talk about advanced mobility, we talk about this huge month for the cruise industry, the maritime industry, this real return to market that Brent was describing. So what is sort of coming next in terms of the technology? I mean, Roland and Brent, they're super excited right now. We can feel it on this conversation. How do you sort of tap into that, and what are you going to bring? What is sort of next on the sort of the technology roadmap as regards to mobility?
No, also exciting times in the satellite industry in general, but specifically as well in the mobility environment on that front, right? Because we're seeing coming to market a new generation of GEO satellites, which provide way more flexibility to allocate capacity when and where is needed. It's fully programmable, let's say, software-defined satellites, which will help Brent to deliver the services to the best possible way when needed. It also implies that we will have more dynamic ground segment that can work together with these programmable satellites. It's an important one. Roland talked about MEO and LEO constellations, right? The multi-orbit environment will also be key in the future, where you will combine GEO and LEO and MEO where relevant, and then deliver a better user experience. And then also we're talking about an environment where we'll have more automation and service orchestration as well, right? So we'll start to combine all these advanced capabilities to deliver better, higher performance, high reliability services to end customers like Roland.
Let me bring Brent back into the conversation and talk about Speedcast unified global platform, and tell us how that sort of relates to how you're working with ST Engineering iDirect, and how it helps serve customers not just today but also in the future.
Yeah, sure. So our unified global platform is really based on the on the Dialog platform. So effectively, it started with the cruise industry. We've since been able to add on, energy, our emerging markets, and as well as some of our commercial shipping and land-based platforms. So we're trying to consolidate either through evolution or the dialogue. I mean, I think directionally where we're going in terms of the multi-path and the multi-orbit is really just to try to take it to the next level. We really see a multi-path, multi-orbit strategy where we as an integrator are going to really embrace everything that comes, whether or not we are the service provider. So that would mean, embracing things like GEO, MEO, and LEO, KU, KA, C-band, also things like 5G, OneWeb, line of sight, microwave, Iridium, Starlink. I mean, it's basically all the above. I mean, we want to utilize all the technologies and try to embrace everything, because at the end of the day, the guy that sits at, on the cruise ship with his iPad, by the pool doesn't really care and shouldn't really care how it's delivered, as long as that solution is delivered in an efficient way and delivers a solution that's as satisfying as possible. So as part of our global UGP, Unified Global Platform, it also includes, we have a technology called TrueBeam, which really automates the network management, where basically we're automatically selecting the network for each remote, where we're trying to do that without spreadsheets, without human intervention, and without a lot of human error. And also part of our next generation, what we're calling our Sigma platform, which integrates our SD-WAN service, which basically blends multiple transmission paths into a single optimized and secure service. So that's really that's our UGP in a nutshell.
No, very interesting stuff. Roland, I want to come back to you, because we started by talking about the customer perspective, but what will you need going forward? I mean, it's very obvious to say, well, we need more bandwidth, but when you look at your relationships with, whether it's Speedcast, ST Engineering, iDirect, others you work with in the satellite industry, what is sort of on your wish list? How will that relationship evolve in the future, and what do you think you will need maybe that you don't necessarily get today?
Well, I see every about 6 months the technology changes, and Speedcast has done so far a very good job providing the latest technology from Dialogue, okay, with the iDirect platforms. But what I see and what it is needed for the expedition market, it is um, those satellites available that will provide at the highest latitudes, north or south, um, you know, uh, the the bandwidth that it is required nowadays. It is really challenging in these days to provide um, bandwidth to the customers, to the passengers on board, to the expedition staff to do their work, as the demand has not double, it's more than triple. I consider more than triple, and everything it is, you know, nowadays, uh, we have customers now that they asking, oh, can I work from on board the vessel? Yeah, it's challenging. I can tell it is really challenging, and stability is also a thing that everybody should look into, right? So the coverage and yeah.
And just I just want to on that point, because there's this sort of feeling that if you're someone on a cruise by a pool, you don't care where the connection comes from. You just expect a home-like connection when you're on a cruise. Is it the same? I'm sort of wondering, is it the same for people that are doing like customers on expeditions though? Is there more of an
It's
understanding,
it,
or are they as demanding as someone maybe who's doing a normal?
no. As the expedition cruising, it is different than regular cruising in Caribbean, right? The expedition cruising, it is based on getting the passengers out of the from the vessel on zodiacs, driving them, showing them the nature, landing them on the ice, or land to explore, right, and then to have them back. But those times that where they back into, they need to have their internet up and running to communicate, send pictures, videos, that they're to update their families in real time. And the other thing is, the ship operation bandwidth that is necessary to hold and to to make them, as flawless as possible.
Would you say CMI has become a much more demanding customer when it comes to satellite recently?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's the demand we see, and I see every day from the vessel coming out. It's a little bit over triple than the previous years before COVID.
Yeah, what does that? I mean, this is obviously great news for you and Brent, hearing words like triple the demand. And um, how tough is it? How tough is it for our industry to obviously meet these challenges and meet that demand now? Because we're talking about pretty significant increases here.
Yeah, so Mark, it's an interesting thing. We've been talking about this being a good problem to have up until you actually have this as a problem. I mean, clearly, trying to match the voracious demand has been a challenge for us. I mean, clearly, we do have great relationships with a lot of our supply partners, and we've been able to meet those needs. I think what we're really looking toward is, right now, we're able to fairly easily meet, the mid, several hundred megabit, supply. But the question is, how are we going to easily meet what the next standard is going to be? How are we going to be able to get to the 1 gigabit standard? Because when we're talking about a vessel that has whatever, pick the number, 5,000 passengers and 2,000 crew, I mean, that's still a small fraction of the bandwidth that any of us have in our homes or our offices now. I mean, we're still probably tenfold behind where we need to be in terms of getting to that bandwidth. So obviously, part of this is an economic issue, because clearly the cost of satellite bandwidth is still probably I don't know, 100 times greater over satellite as compared to a terrestrial. But clearly, this is going to be a challenge for our industry, going forward. So far, we've been able to meet that need. I think for the foreseeable future, we're going to be able to do it. But it is true at a certain point, as we have vessels that are concentrated in certain areas, we are going to face that challenge. And though I would imagine that where there is, I think there will be some economic opportunities that will also meet those challenges as well.
Yo, do you want to talk a little bit about that and how ST Engineering iDirect sees the maritime market and how you can help cater for that demand?
Absolutely. It's something that we see, and it's something that we also definitely work hard to enable on what we are doing today and keep doing in the future as well, because we look at it this way, right? We want to enable Speedcast and customers like CMI as well to consume the services and the throughputs that they need, that they can deliver in the best possible way, right? In the most optimal way, without compromises, the most cost-effective way as well. So in the end, we want to provide the technology, and we are providing today the technology that can push as much as possible out of the resources available on board of the satellites, because that's often the limiting factor as well, right? And as we evolve to more capable satellites and more flexible satellites, and so we really want to provide the technology, which is not where the technology is not a limiting factor, but in the end, it's the user experience and, let's say, the budget of the customer, which can then be the limiting factor. And that helps everybody in the value chain, of course, because then you can really deliver what is needed from an end user perspective. So for us, it's keep pushing on higher throughputs, right? Today we do a 1 gigabit modem. We're looking to the next capability in that sense, but then do it also in the most efficient and cost-effective way and a reliable service, and that's key for the customers, right?
Yeah, I want to stick with you as well as we're getting close to wrapping up here. I mean, maritime, there's a number of interesting growth sectors for satellite companies right now, and we could have conversations about all of them. How would you compare the growth or the opportunity in maritime for ST Engineering iDirect compared to even other mobility verticals or other ones, or even such as government and stuff? So if you could tell us a little bit about maritime and the potential there.
Yeah, it's a very good point as well, because here we talk, of course, a lot about cruise, but we see expansion in a lot of the maritime markets, and so in all the different segments, going from the cruise segments, but also in the merchant segment, in the yachting, but also in the fishing segments, we see large growth in the markets and still a lot of vessels which are not connected, which are needing connectivity in the future. So these are all growing segments from a satellite perspective. More technologies, also better cost-effective terminals coming to the market for a fishing segment. So a better adoption of VSAT. Satcom communications in all the segments is good for everybody.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I think we'll leave it there. This has been a fascinating discussion. It's our first Thursday morning conversation where we've had 4 of us talking, and it's great to hear. It's great to hear about the growth, the demand for bandwidth that Roland has been talking about. It really does bode well for our market. It's great to hear these case studies. These case studies are the lifeblood of our industry, and hearing Roland, what you were saying was super interesting. Likewise, Brent, talking about the demand and the fact that this is one of the most exciting months in recent times. And obviously, we're talking technology with Yo. So I just want to thank you all for taking part today. Really enjoyed this discussion and look forward to seeing how all of this develops. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.